Okay, we are live, and I do want to thank those of you. I don't think that many of you are going to see this when it's live, but there's not really that much time today anyway. And I am actually pretty surprised that this hasn't received as much attention as, you know, some of the other stuff that's going on right now concerning El Paso and Dayton. So, what I am talking about today is this woman. Her name is Talia Lavin. I've done a couple of spots on her before. She is a very, very left-wing uh, writer. I'll call her a writer. I don't know if she deserves the definition of journalist. I don't call myself a journalist, really. I do writing. I do a little investigation. Generally, I try to keep my stances a little bit more limited when I try to write something that's news. But the real problem that I'm seeing right now is that there is zero accountability in the world of journalism because they will use a journalist that they find to be reliable in order to simply support the proposition that you have this agreed worldview. That's how you get the mainstream media. So please, if you are joining, I see Elron is already here. So like this video just so we can get a little more coverage. And of course, also, you know, comment, share it, do whatever you can because everything that I've been producing has been pretty much suppressed. The views are being suppressed. It's almost as if YouTube knows that they have us by the balls. So this will be downloaded and re-uploaded to BitChute later. If you can, please follow me on BitChute. If you prefer to watch my videos on BitChute, I totally understand because the notifications are a little more reliable. But we're going to jump into it. In this case, very, very early, you can find something that she says that's not really very factual. She says how 8chan shooters became the go-to platform for mass shooters. And she says, over the past 6 months, 3 separate far-right mass shooters used 8chan to broadcast their violent ideology. The incidents forced some tech companies to rethink their assumptions of neutrality. So she says, 8chan, pronounced Infinity Chan by its users, has one primary slogan, embrace infamy. So I'm not sure if that's true, but I do know that even if you look at an interview with Ars Technica, which is a pretty well-known source for news on tech, in a 2015 interview, they interviewed I think his name is Frederick Brennan, and they asked him, how do you pronounce the name? Is it 8chan or Infinite Chan? And it says, I prefer 8chan actually. Yes, when I first made the site, I put in the Infinity logo, but nobody really respected that. I call it 8chan just because that's what everybody else calls it. So this is really, she's just saying crap that maybe somebody told her, but it doesn't really, in my opinion, pass muster. So this is already a factual inaccuracy in the first sentence. You guys might be on 8chan. I've never used it. I don't really find much interesting on it. I use Gab, which is probably the edgiest platform that I still use. But generally, I think that whoever the subject is, it shouldn't matter whether it is people that you hate or people that you like. If you're going to say things that are inaccurate, you're really just being an idiot. You're opening yourself up to intense professional criticism, and justifiably so. So then she goes on to talk about how the Christchurch shooter was on it. So now she says his name. I usually don't. I abide by this rule of thumb that a lot of people do, which is that you don't mention the shooter's name online or wherever. If you guys don't follow that, that's fine for you. But I've found that it's useless to actually give these people more advertising when in reality this is one of the reasons that they end up getting all of this fan mail. They end up getting fan mail from all sorts of weirdos like these chicks who are what do they used to call them? Usually, I mean, there's these chicks that are addicted to to prisoners. It's pretty funny. Maybe not as funny nowadays, but there used to be a huge thing with these women who would write to prisoners and try to get them into Christianity and stuff. And then she says, this is the funniest thing. So she says 8chan was originally launched as an offshoot of 4chan, an older but similarly oriented Wild West message board that remains a congregation point for internet users enamored of racial slurs, political violence, and anime porn. A quick glance at 4chan's Paul board, the place for its users to post about politics this morning, revealed multiple posts of Nazi flags, uses of the N-word, and praise of Croatia as a Christian white ethno-state. As extreme as 4chan was and remains, 8chan was built to house users that couldn't tolerate even the barest of moderation. The split occurred during the internet-wide misogynist cataclysm now known as Gamergate. That is another factual inaccuracy. That is something that I think okay, so 8chan was actually founded in October of 2013, which was less than a year before Gamergate went live. Okay, 8chan was founded way before this Gamergate thing became a thing, and I can tell you that, I mean, this focus on Gamergate really is some sort of reverse Pizzagate of the left. And in fact, it precedes that, right? And it's about something that's far less significant. Why should anyone care about some online gamers who hate these gaming journos and sometimes these gaming executives that seem to be intent on scaring away all of their customers? Ben Shapiro. Fuck Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro. What a windbag. Jailbait chasers. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Elron. Elron, I see you have some experience with that. Do you have anything in your record that we should know? Just asking. Don't feel any pressure to answer. And then they go into this long crap about, oh, what's your life like? Whatever. And this guy who's only about 25 years old. This is like, it's ridiculous. So they have this fixation on people. Look, 8chan, I would say, has a real serious problem. They go into the fact, and she mentions that there is child porn on it. Maybe look, I have known, for example, that there's a problem like that on a lot of these more mainstream websites. And in fact, I think it was brought up in the Senate hearing that there was a child porn issue at Facebook back when Zuckerberg and a number of these other people came. It was Facebook, I believe, Twitter, Instagram. They all had issues with that. And this is really the problem with these sites, that all of the problems that you see on 8chan are generally huge issues for the other mainstream social media companies as well. And then it goes into a lot about the Gamergate movement, which honestly, who cares at this point? It says, despite its occasional, so we're going to skip some of this because it doesn't matter. And in fact, nobody. Why does anybody care at this point? But it says, despite its occasional male targets, Gamergate never lost its misogynist rancor. Trolls learned to gamify their tactics overwhelming selected targets with abuse, or contacting en masse the ad sponsors of journalistic outlets who had the temerity to criticize them. As a 2017 report from the think tank Data and Society on Gamergate's broader consequences for disinformation online put it, Gamergate participants asserted that feminism and progressive causes in general are trying to stifle free speech, one of their most cherished values. This is a retrograde populist ideology which reacts violently to suggestions of male privilege. Now let's highlight that passage, and I'll repeat it in a second. Okay? And I know some of you guys obviously were fans of the same show, the Hard Bastard, and you know he has some of the same approach, but I'll connect it to something she says later. So up here, she says, Gamergate participants asserted that feminism and progressive causes in general are trying to stifle free speech, one of their most cherished values. This is a retrograde populist ideology which reacts violently to suggestions of white male privilege. And then over here, which I already highlighted on first pass, it says the heady, unlimited libertarian commitment to free speech that defined earlier days on the web has shifted, at least minutely in Silicon Valley, as tech executives evolve to face a world that they themselves have shaped. One solution is for companies to pour resources in moderation to ensure their extant rules are more consistently applied. Mark Zuckerberg has called for global regulations on hateful and violent content. So these things that are treated as allegations in this quote up here are acknowledged to be fact down here, right? So that's really the lesson we have to learn from reading this garbage from people like Talia Lavin. By September 2014, according to reporting by the Daily Dot, 4chan's moderators effectively banned Gamergate discussions from the board, citing the site's rules against posting personal information. A group of militant misogynists enraged by the ban congregated on newly created message board 8chan to better coordinate harassment against women, particularly women of color. They were soon so none of that's cited. And by the way, I don't even know what race Zoe Quinn is, for example. So, I mean, let me look at her picture. I'm not going to pull it up because then I'll be accused of being part of gamer, because I don't even game. So I honestly do not give a shit. Zoe Quinn it appears she is some sort of a white woman, a purple-haired white woman. So yeah, who cares? But they're going to call it women of color. They were soon joined by a network of pedophiles who used the site's anything goes ethos to post graphically sexual images of women, children. So this issue with the pedophiles, I can understand, is a real problem. I think that if there's any platform that has that, you have to prosecute the people who are both the people posting it, and there has to be liability. I would say civil liability for the people who are hosting it. So I have no problem with people suing 8chan if, for example, their child has for example, you have all these pervs they'll pose all sorts of pictures. They'll post pictures of kids that were taken in the nude. I have no problem with people suing them. I have no problem with the children suing them. That's not really the issue, but that's not really the focus here. They're bringing in the issues of child porn in order to link it to Gamergate, which is not the same thing. Tiger mom, Asian lady with nothing better to do. I don't really see her. Look, let me pull up something. So yeah, 8chan. This is another thing here. So they start in September 2014, but by then 8chan was 11 months old. So Zoe Quinn is. It doesn't say anything about her being Asian or anything. Which even if it were true, I mean, who cares? So Over the ensuing 5 years, Gamergate itself has faded, but the harassment techniques forged in that crucible. So they're making it out to be one of the greatest cultural events of all time, Gamergate, which that really shows how delusional these people are. Most people around the world never even heard of Gamergate until way after whatever the hell happened was over. And then they go on and on and says, while Frederick Brennan, the site's creator, has deplored its current state in recent news interviews. Since 2015, 8chan has been run and bankrolled by Jim Watkins, a United States expat currently living on a hog farm in the Philippines. Watkins, who made his money by getting in on the ground floor of online pornography and helping Japanese pornographers skirt the country's strict regulations, has been frank about his tolerance of the white supremacists who utilize his site. He told Splinter in 2016, I don't have a problem with white supremacists talking on 8chan. They have reasons for their beliefs. I don't need to justify their reasons. Watkins' laissez-faire approach mirrors that of the man who stepped up to provide support to the message board after Cloudflare cut ties. Rob Monster, CEO of Epic, a provider of domain registration and web hosting, quickly took on 8chan as a new client. It's not Monster's first brush with infamous far-right sites. He has previously stepped in to provide hosting for the social media network Gab and acquired DDoS protection service BitMitigate, a small company that made a big splash providing services for the neo-Nazi site Daily Stormer. So I would say this. I think that any web page that is able to avoid doing things that are illegal in the context of what they do as a web page, I don't know if you can really justify taking them off the air, or off the web. Meaning, yes, they have repugnant opinions. They say things that are in poor taste. They say things that are often false. This does not necessitate putting them off the air, right? So yeah, we welcome voluntary canary. So we have a new person. It sucks right now. I mean, it's hard to really spread anything and it's hard to share anything. So thanks anybody for joining. I know it sounds a little pathetic. Um, where were we? It says here. So yeah, they offered those services to Gab and Daily Stormer and all of that. I believe Daily Stormer, if I'm not mistaken, lost a lawsuit recently because they were actually harassing a woman in Montana. And when you go into that, I would say it depends whether it was Daily Stormer itself that was being used to harass the people. They were harassing a Jewish lady in Montana, and I think that the courtroom is a better place to settle these issues than it is to do it, using these companies or whatever, because eventually I think somebody will stand up and sue in court. And look, are all the laws just? No, but I think that the First Amendment and certain issues, when you're talking about slander, when you're talking about online threats, that there is a mechanism for our society to work this out, and it's not, I believe, through these censorious websites and the media. So absolutely, I think that it was okay for them to host these sites, even though I obviously vastly disagree with the Daily Stormer. But it's stupid to go after companies for selling services to awful people. Okay, unless you're participating in horrible things that they're doing, it's not wrong. So let me use the analogy that I think is the best here. If you were, let's say, the butcher in the town where, let's say Jeffrey Dahmer lived, although Jeffrey Dahmer wouldn't be eating animal meat, he'd probably be eating, or he'd be eating human meat. He wouldn't be going to the butcher, right? But let's say he once in a while came in for cold cuts, and you sold cold cuts to Jeffrey Dahmer. You can't blame the person. Now, there's a difference. Obviously, it's possible that nobody knew at the time that Jeffrey Dahmer was eating people, but you don't have a guilt by association simply for offering a service or commodity to a person that's horrible. As of this writing, 8chan.8ch.net remains dark, a hole in the internet where infamy once spawned. Epic, as it turned out, was leasing web space from web services company Voxility, which cut ties with Epic immediately after Stanford researcher Alex Stamos pointed out its role on Twitter. But the fact remains that it took multiple mass murders for tech companies to face up to their responsibilities as conduits for violent ideology. I want to say something very quick. If you think ideologies can be violent, then you'd have to ban all of the religions that are on the internet. You'd have to ban all of the various literature that's out there. You know, whether it's in the form of things like Gundam, you know, anime that's excessively violent, or whatever, movies that are out there, because they're all representative of violent events, and it's a very short leap from condemning violent ideologies to condemning violent material that could be analogized to it, right? That's why there was a lot of call that when I was a kid. Okay, there was still, after I think when I was in high school, it was 20 years after the assassination of John Lennon by Mark David Chapman. At the time, there was still talk of some schools calling for the censoring of Catcher in the Rye because it was the book that inspired Chapman to kill John Lennon. Even though, if you read the book, it's not apparently clear why he was inspired to do it. He was obsessed with the lead character, obviously, but you know, the First Amendment applies to that. The First Amendment should apply even to things that are egregiously hateful. You know, hateful stuff is simply the expression of beliefs that people have as a result of things that happen in their life. We have Sislowski joining. So thanks, man. How's it going in Southeast Asia? So we've already read this portion. It says here, what makes 8chan unusual is its affiliation with open extremism, supporting executives, rendering the site itself somewhat immune to public pressure. That's what made a Cloudflare, which is not a platform but a protection service provider, step in. The infrastructure of the web itself, made up of companies who have traditionally thought of themselves as neutral actors. But in a world of internet ubiquity, a world in which genocides can be coordinated on social media and extremist movements can go global in a heartbeat, neutrality itself can be a dangerous position. The slain in Christchurch, Poway, and El Paso revealed to the world what marginalized internet users have long known. Providing succor and service to hateful and violent content was never neutral in the first place. The question of how tech companies can curtail dangerous rhetoric without unduly impinging on their users' free expression is a complex one. Impinging. That's an interesting word to use. She's fine. That's fine. Sorry, I'm being a grammar nerd for a second. So she says a question. It's not clear what a white-dominated Silicon Valley is even up to the task. This idea that Silicon Valley is white-dominated, and white male-dominated, that is ridiculous. Yes, you have a lot of white males who work as programmers and developers and probably in other capacities there, but you also used to have, at least before she screwed herself over, Ellen Pao, you have Sundar Pichai, you have Susan Wojcik, whatever her name is, Wojcicki. I can never pronounce her name. It really is ridiculous that this is the identity politics seeping into journalism. And it's really the problem here that you have these people who are given chance after chance to redeem themselves, and then she has contradictions here. She has, first of all, this factual error. Okay, calling it Infinity Chan. It's not really called Infinity Chan by almost anyone. I'm pretty sure that literally anyone that you talk to, even users, would call it 8chan, even the person who created the site. She also gets wrong why 8chan was created. Okay, once you build on that, these erroneous elements of nonsense, okay, two basic facts that you simply get wrong, and then you skew this all to Gamergate, which I'm not quite sure how that relates to the two shooters or even the third. I don't know what about the third shooter, who I think just he was, I believe, mentioning Gamergate just to troll, just like he mentioned Candace Owens and China and all that. This is as much of a fact-free piece as you can find. The slain in Christchurch, Poway, and El Paso revealed to the world the marginalized internet users that what marginalized internet users have long known. Providing succor and service to hateful and violent content was never neutral in the first place. Skipping down, what is clear, however, what has been clear for years is that freedom of speech for harassers and abusers who brigade, dox, harass, and threaten minorities when not shooting them means enforced silence, self-censorship, and fear for their targets. So this is important. Okay, she only cares about abusers who brigade, dox, harass, and threaten minorities, not people in general. So if you're just a person, okay, and this really depends where you live. Think about it. If you are a person living in Mexico, which is the majority of people there are Mexicans, apparently you do not have this right to protection that the non-Mexicans in Mexico would have, right? So she's a clear anti-majoritarian. That's what I would call it. Um, and yes, CNN sucks is correct. You have Christchurch was streamed on Facebook. Where are the calls to have Facebook removed? Exactly. It's the same issue every time that these people use all these other platforms and they don't receive any responsibility for it. In fact, there was a shooter here in Ohio, uh, Steve Stevens, I think his name was, and he was streaming on Facebook and he murdered a man live on Facebook and nothing happened. So yeah, I think that this is generally this it's this impulse to gain fame by condemning alt tech in order to curry favor with big tech. This is what people like Talia Lavin are doing, and we're going to go into Talia Lavin herself right now. So one thing that she forgot to mention was that you have this is from Big League Politics a few months ago, and you might have heard about it. I believe Tim Pool talked about it. Styx might have mentioned it. It was not very well publicized for obvious reasons. There were two writers, two for Vice, who snuck into the home of this 8chan CEO and tried to, get an interview with him. And it was basically a breaking and entering in the Philippines, and they were arrested. And then they closed. What do you call it? Uh, their Twitter accounts were made private. I believe that's what you call it. When I was confronted by them, I was completely shocked. I had already told the same employees of Vice News that no, I did not want to be interviewed by them. They had no right to be in my home, he said. Watkins claims they're lucky to be alive because he would have reacted much differently to their intrusion had his children not been around. He claimed that the videos were being live streamed on social media. The Twitter accounts of Lavin and Reeve are now blocked for public accessibility. Despite that counter, Watkins is emboldened to keep his platform free for individuals to be heard on the internet who are deemed guilty of wrongthink by big tech monopolists. I run my website so that those who are silent still have a place to write and be heard, he said before noting that he had been banned from publishing by many of the tech giants. Watkins also said he would rather be interviewed by someone like Joe Rogan, the popular stand-up comedian who hosts an influential podcast, than someone from the biased fake news. This follows a Vice News report that painted 8chan as a menace responsible for facilitating the rise of white supremacist terrorism. U.S. government officials hope for censoring one of the last bastions for free speech on the internet. Do you have any recommendations about what can be done to address the violent hate speech and incitement of violence found on fringe sites like 8chan and Gab? Representative Mike Rogers, Republican of Alabama, asked U.S. deep state officials during a recent House committee on. So we're seeing bias from the other angle, but I mean, so be it. House Committee on Homeland Security hearing. Y'all don't have any suggestions for us? Rogers said after hearing silence. That's scary. This is retarded. Schlo Mogan. Um, yeah, that's a good point. I remember that case with the four kids who I think they were all under 18, but they were attacking a mentally retarded guy, and that never received any repercussions for Facebook. And then I don't even know if they took the video down. Um, so yeah, this is something that she neglected to put in her article, that Vice had broken into the home of this 8chan founder. Now, look, you can say whatever you want. Maybe you do want 8chan to be censored, but it goes way beyond that to say I want people I think it's acceptable for people to break into his home. That's beyond. Now we're going to go to Talia Lavin herself. It says New Yorker staffer resigns after falsely accusing ICE agent of having a Nazi tattoo. The fact checker for the New Yorker, who mistook a Marine veteran's tattoo for a Nazi symbol, has resigned, saying the quote small mistake has ruined her life. Talia Lavin is out of a job following her June 18th tweet that caused mass outrage. So this was in 2018. So it's barely over a year, and she already has had multiple jobs, despite the fact that she is a disgrace to the trade of journalism. Let's see here. Lavin, I feel like I made a small mistake and it's destroyed my life, she told New York Magazine's The Cut. Lavin since deleted a tweet was about Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent Justin Gertner, whom she falsely accused of having a tattoo of the Nazis' Iron Cross. But the ink, ICE later explained, is really of a Titan II symbol for his platoon when he served in Afghanistan. So isn't Titan II a video game? Maybe I'm wrong. Lavin posted a mea culpa on Twitter last week and announced she quit her job. To Justin Gertner, I apologize sincerely. All I saw in you was the photo ICE tweeted and not the human being depicted inside it, she wrote. It was uncharitable, and the hasty deletion doesn't change that. I'm sorry, and I have voluntarily resigned after 3 years at the New Yorker. Lavin said her decision came after she realized I had become a weapon used to discredit my colleagues and the vital work they do, holding power to account. Her Gertner tweet prompted a scathing response from ICE, which demanded she and the New Yorker apologize for baselessly slandering him. Lavin slammed ICE, saying, I do not think it is acceptable for a federal agency to target a private citizen for a good faith, hastily rectified error. So no, this is not true, because when she targeted a person who is working, a private citizen. Well, okay, so he works for ICE, and she targeted him personally, right? And they're still doing it. Okay, they're still doing it with other people, which I guess it depends on what you feel is appropriate for you know if you feel that government employees should be able to have their own private beliefs. I think that it's pretty dangerous to limit people's private beliefs. If they can separate it from their professional life, I think it's okay. Peter Strzok is, by the way, suing the FBI, claiming that they're violating his First Amendment rights. But the fact is, a lot of the offenses that he committed that led to his firing were committed on an FBI issued phone. So we actually don't have that much time left, but we'll keep going. So she also noted, ICE also lied about me, saying I originated the scrutiny of Gertner's tattoo, misspelling my name and misstating my job, as the story quickly went viral. Okay, ICE is not a journalistic outlet. You are. Okay, and you initiated this whole problem. That's the real problem here. You initiated, and then I guess the it got too hot, and you ended up resigning. She said, "This has been painful and scary, and as I move into an uncertain and financially precarious future, I will be focusing on my writing and any other freelance work I can find," she wrote before asking for donations and linking to her PayPal page. What a useless whore. And this isn't the first time that I've actually covered her, but she was actually hired earlier this year to teach a quote journalism course at NYU School of Journalism. Uh, it was the course was entitled "Reporting on the Far Right," and it was supposed to happen in the fall semester of 2019, but apparently it has been canceled. It says here, and this is from the Wrap. It's not from any sort of right wing or far right website. It says here, at least one current NYU journalism student questioned the decision to hire Lavin. I sympathize with Lavin's politics, but I don't know why someone who had to quit their journalism job for falsely implying someone is a Nazi should be teaching at NYU, said the student who requested anonymity for fear of academic reprisal. I know there are plenty of reporters out there in need of work who haven't made a mistake like that. Lavin declined to comment for the story. Reps for NYU, the school's journalism department, and university president Andrew Hamilton did not respond to requests for comment. After leaving the New Yorker last June, Lavin was hired by the liberal media watchdog group Media Matters for America less than a month later to focus on far-right extremism. Though her LinkedIn profile lists that she currently works there, a spokesperson for the organization confirmed that she was no longer employed there. An additional person with knowledge of the matter said she left several months ago. Neither Lavin's 3-year tenure at The New Yorker nor her stint at Media Matters are mentioned at her on her official NYU faculty bio. Lavin's career promptly blew up last June, so then it goes into the whole wheelchair thing with the ICE agent. And then it says that, however, was not enough for the critics. The story blew up on social media, and Lavin even earned a lengthy review from ICE itself as well as the New Yorker. The personal social media accounts of staff members do not represent the magazine, and we in no way share the viewpoint expressed in this tweet, a magazine spokesperson told National Review. The tweet has been deleted, and we deeply regret any harm that this may have caused, Mr. Gertner. In a Twitter thread, Lavin soon announced her resignation from the magazine and apologized to Gertner over the error. She also criticized ICE, saying it was not, quote, acceptable for the agency to attack her personally over her mistake. No, you did this, and you are responsible. Let's see if there's any comments on this. So yeah, people are raking her over the coals. So yeah, this was a big own goal for NYU. This has been a wild and difficult week. I owe as JICE agent just so then it goes into something we already read. Washington Square News, which is NYU's independent student newspaper. So it says journalists harassed by far right will teach how to report on it. Talia Lavin, who has received death threats from members of the far right for a past tweet, will teach a course at NYU this fall. So that's an interesting way of commenting or writing about the way that she sent out a very misleading and false tweet as a journalist. Um, and then this is really what's so crazy about this. They just portray her as the victim of something that she got herself into. And by the way, this isn't the only thing. If you've ever seen, um, so this is Truth with Robert Redford. So I mean, I'm not a fan of George Bush. I'm not a fan of his presidency, but the fact is that he was slandered by CBS News and Dan Rather. So what did the media do? They created a movie that was praising Dan Rather for trying to get to the bottom of George Bush's draft dodging by using forged memos that claimed that he had tried to dodge the Vietnam War. You know, there's plenty to criticize George Bush without making up lies. Okay, and then eventually NYU canceled her class because there was no interest. New York University has canceled an undergraduate journalism class that former New Yorker fact checker Talia Lavin was scheduled to teach this fall after only 2 students signed up. The decision to hire Lavin to teach the elective reporting on the far right had drawn criticism since she resigned her New Yorker position last June after falsely accusing an immigration and customs enforcement agent of having a Nazi tattoo. Adam Pennenberg, director of undergraduate studies at NYU's Arthur L. Carter Journalism Institute, said that low enrollment forced him to cancel the class. Canceling the class had nothing to do with Talia's writing, tweets, or anything else. We canceled it because too few students enrolled. Lavin did not immediately respond to a request for comment. NYU journalism electives are capped at 15 students, though the department has run courses with as few as 8 students under certain circumstances. Pennenberg also said it was unlikely his department would invite Lavin back. It would make no sense to try it again, given how few students expressed interest, he said. We have no plans to offer Talia another course, simply because her main focus and the focus of her upcoming book is the far right. Lavin's official NYU faculty bio, which lauded her as an expert in far-right extremism and terrorism, was removed sometime around April 20th, 2019. So she was basically a faculty member at NYU for about a month. Okay, I guess I guess not. I guess not. I guess not. I mean, she is gone. So yeah, this is great. It's over for her. I mean, but then she gets picked up for GQ to write about Gamergate. Anyway, so that's it for today. I do want to thank you guys for turning out. I want you to like the video. I want you to share the video. I will probably be uploading it to BitChute tomorrow, so please follow me on BitChute and on Minds, and also on Subscribestar if you want to donate. My handle on all of those is at Chef Leopard, and on Gab at Starscream85. And I will talk to you later. I am not on 8chan, in case you're asking. I probably would not have much interest in it. See you guys later.